Welcome to Real Raw Health with your hosts, Nikki Burnett of Taste Life Nutrition and Matt Rowe of Parsley Pet. During our show, we are talking about your pet's health, raw feeding, and the health our pets bring to us with love. And we also talk a little bit about human health as well, because we can't stop from talking about that topic. It is so important in this day and age. So welcome, Nikki, to this week's show.
Thank you. Thank you. As always, this is one of the top things of the week that I like to do. It's so much fun. And talking about the dogs, we just, we work so hard to keep our dogs with us and keep them healthy. And we just really want to work even harder, the two of us, at getting out there the information to help keep our kiddos around as long as we can.
Right.
We both have a passion for it. We have a passion for health and nutrition and all of those things, but it's not talked about enough with our dogs. And there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of fear. And so that's what this is all about. Let's get the real stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so much information. I think a lot of people, and if they're anything like me, they go through analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just don't do anything because it's either you talk yourself out of it because it's daunting, or you sit there and you look at it, you're like, where's the right information coming from? So that's why Nikki and I started this show and started doing this, is because we wanted to disseminate all of that information out there and weed through where you're hearing it and really come down to, this is how I'm going to keep my puppy around for a really long time.
Yeah.
So this week's show was kind of, I would say, inspired by one of your friends that recently lost a puppy.
Yeah. So my best friend recently lost her lab. He was around for 16 years.
Okay.
And
so a 16-year-old lab. That's really good. She did a great job.
She did.
Taking care of it. Yeah.
She did. But she's like everybody else. I can't feed raw. I don't know how to feed raw. I'm scared to feed raw, and so it was very, he lived a long time, but it was only in the end that he actually started getting raw, which is, it's interesting when you see a dog who is declining and then you change to raw, they're like, whoa, he's doing really well. And so that was always interesting. But this guy, from almost the day he was born, had just insane allergies. So his skin would itch and he would chew on his feet all this time, and his ears would get red and swollen and itchy. And, it's so frustrating and so hard because you don't want him to be miserable. What do? You go to the vet. The vet says, well, here are these drugs and here are these steroids. And he was on lots of stuff for a long time. And then, we kind of finally together started working through it. And he did really, really well on a raw diet and with his allergies and everything. I mean, that's what I was telling you, Matt, is that he was allergic to grass.
And that, man, that's a first. I have not heard of a dog being allergic to grass. And it might be just that I haven't been around enough for the last 20 years that a vet on here now watching the show could be like, really, Matt? And then, but really, when they're testing for allergies, they're basically testing urine or blood. And they're really trying to figure out where that inflammatory response is happening inside your animal. But you said that his feet would itch when he walked on grass.
Yeah.
And so that just sparks the question for me is, what did they put on the grass? And those that know Roundup and glyphosate and all of that, you might have had that same thought process of they're putting chemicals on the grass and the dog was walking on it. But then how does the test know where he walked?
Yeah.
Unless that it's really, because look at the pads of the foot, our skin, everything, the skin of your dog is an organ. So whether that, whatever it was absorbing through the actual skin itself and getting inside the body, which can happen.
Mhm.
So he tested positive for a grass allergy.
And many others, but that was one of them. And obviously so extreme because dogs walk in grass every day. That's where they go potty, is in the grass. And so it was just it was a miserable time for him for quite some time. They were finally able to get it under control. But yeah, you know, even with all of the things that he dealt with, you know, he lived to be 16. He was a, you know, happy little guy. Yeah, this only happened, I think it's been 2 weeks now. And so it's yeah, it's heartbreaking. It is. But you know, what we want to do, if possible, is work with these animals that are dealing with
Mhm.
such extreme allergies as early as possible, you know.
Mhm.
And if, you know, the drugs aren't working, because for him, a lot of the drugs weren't working and it was constant steroids and he was still
Mhm.
miserable. You know, what can we do with him, with his food, with his, you know, with any supplements? What can we do to help him? So maybe we don't have to do as many of the drugs. Maybe he doesn't have to have the allergies. Maybe there's some deeper issue going on
Mhm.
that's being missed. You know, as with human medicine, you know, we have allopathic medicine, and what they know, because this is how they're trained, is okay, this is a symptom and this is the drug.
Mhm.
And so in, you know, functional medicine, and of course I'm not a doctor, I'm functional nutrition, but you know, we're trained to ask why. Always ask why. Okay, why are the allergies there? What's causing it? What's the deeper issue? What could this be? And keep digging and digging and digging, and hopefully find something where you can allow the body to start to balance itself instead of covering it up with a drug. Now, with that said, when a dog is as miserable, or a person is as miserable as they can be, drugs are probably going to be necessary for a time. But
Yeah.
let's see what else we can do to maybe find out how and why and address that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you are, why, you know, in our pre-show, when we were talking about it, you talked about a protocol that you put your patients on
Mhm.
and do you call them patients? I don't,
No, they're clients. They're
they're
clients. I
clients.
would have
All right.
corrected you. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, no, no. I'm glad you, when I came out of my mouth, I was like, oh, that's not what she calls them. Okay.
Yeah.
So your clients, when your clients come in and they're showing allergies or they have an allergy issue, what kind of protocol do you help them out with?
You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is a leaky gut protocol. So you
Okay.
can call it leaky gut, you can call it intestinal permeability. You know, it's got a number of different names, but essentially what's happening is the cells, you know, we have, you know, in our gut and all of our body, we've got cells that are really, really tight together, right? There aren't supposed
Hmm.
to be things that get through.
Right.
What happens though is there's a I think it's a protein, but it's like it's a chemical in the body called zonulin. When zonulin goes up, it's a regulator. It's supposed to be there, but the cells come apart. So they can come apart. Each cell can come apart. The cell wall can come apart, or cells can
Mhm.
come apart from each other.
Okay.
And then so what happens is then food particles, can be bacteria, it can be, you know, all kinds of different things can then get through into the bloodstream when it's
Hmm.
not supposed to. So the body doesn't recognize it. It creates an immune response, then an inflammatory response, and
Hmm.
then, you know, potentially disease, right? Or
Yeah.
food sensitivities or allergies or whatever is happening. And so
Yeah.
the goal is to, that's kind of the first place I go. With clients it's different. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I want to know more. You know, is
Mhm.
there a bacteria, is there a parasite, is there something that's creating this inflammatory response, creating the leaky gut and so forth.
Mhm.
You know, we
Right.
have some of those tests for dogs, but you know, for me really, I would just go straight for a dog. I would go straight to a leaky gut protocol, which would include
Mhm.
like glutamine, aloe vera, some, you know, marshmallow, things that are soothing but also proven to repair that gut lining. And glutamine is the most used amino acid in the body, but especially by the gut.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you're saying that glutamine actually starts to lessen that inflammatory response that's happening.
It kind of feeds the gut wall essentially. It allows it to heal and it brings down. I don't know if it. necessarily brings down zonulin, but you take out the things that are going to increase zonulin. So for dogs would be, probably any kind of kibble is going to increase zonulin because
Yeah.
it's inflammatory. For humans, drugs and alcohol and gluten, we got a lot of
Mhm.
gluten in dog food. Those things can increase zonulin. And so, if a dog, like my friend's dog has been on lots of drugs, what's happening?
Oh, I just had somebody enter the studio. So he left his charger in here. So yes, that's
That's so funny.
I love the opportunity of having a studio that I get to, actually produce out of. But
Yeah,
every once in a while,
that's
that was
awesome.
100% my fault because I saw it sitting there and I should have grabbed it and given it to him.
It's really funny.
God knows
Um,
what that sounded like.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, all good. Yeah. So anyway,
So we were talking about zonulin and having
zonulin.
that, the glutamine, and it was on the side of you didn't know if it actually started to limit the zonulin that was in the system, but it actually goes to begin repairing it. Did I hear
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, yeah. So it goes, yeah, it kind of feeds the gut wall. It allows it to repair. The zonulin goes down by taking out the whatever it is that's increasing the zonulin. So
Mhm.
changing the dog food, getting gluten out of their diet, getting grains out of their diet, feeding them raw food. All of these
Mhm.
things that we promote on this show and that we talk about
Mhm.
are going to help the animals, help their gut, and then you give them the supplements in order to help the body do a better job of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on like CBD as an anti-inflammatory for using in a case where my dog might be experiencing extreme itching or whatever it be under that category? Do you feel that CBD could be something that helps keep it at bay or at least limit it?
I think it can help limit it, yes, because the itching is going to come because of an inflammatory response, right? There's
Right.
inflammation, itching. It's probably histamines. It's all of these things that are going on inside the body.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think CBD is going to be calming. I think it's
Hmm.
anti-inflammatory. I know that my friend had her dog on CBD for a few years and he did
Hmm.
really, really well with it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think, we want to, and we've talked about this before, we've had on, Earth Buddy. So we want to make
Hmm.
sure that that we're using a company that is a good, well-sourced, reputable company because there's so much trash out there. There's so
Oh,
much trash. We want to be really careful what we're giving to ourselves, what we're giving to our dogs. So
right.
know the companies that are really there to do the right thing. And Earth Buddy is the one that I know best just because of you. And, I've done my own, looking into it and talking
Yeah.
um, with them. But, we want to truly know that they're using organic methods, that
Hmm.
the plant is a good, healthy plant and all of the things that go along with it. And so,
Right.
but yeah, CBD's, I think it's great.
Well, and I think, you point to the reason why we like Earthbody, and we've said their name multiple times, so they're going to have to pay us some sort of like
Yeah.
advertising fee, but don't worry about that. Um, what we're really looking at is the source. That's why we like them so much, is because how they actually extract their product, the source of their product, how they grow it. And you go down that thread and you could say, oh, that's a reputable company because they openly share how they actually manufacture, where they get it from. They have pictures. So now when we look at the foods that we're eating, we're taking a look at the source of those foods, and it's not always transparent
Right.
on what chemicals are sprayed on the vegetables, what chemicals. I mean, shoot, and when I gave Leo a walk last night, there wasn't a sign that put up I sprayed chemicals on my lawn. I
Right.
mean, if it's recent, you'll see the little yellow flag that sticks up, but really we don't get that privy, that inside knowledge to what they fed the cow, what they fed the duck, what they fed these animals. And
Right.
what they fed them could actually have that contagion within it as well, as
Yeah.
we've talked about, cows in the feedlot and how dangerous, or not dangerous, but how scary that can be with how they're actually getting the animals. So when your dog eats and when we eat what that animal that comes off of a feedlot, we're eating what they ate right
Right.
at the end of their life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's an important thing to understand. You know, it's really just biochemistry. You know, we eat what they ate because we're eating them, and they are what they ate. You know, how's that for
Right.
talking animals? But you know, one of the things that we hear a lot is that these foods that dogs eat often. So whether it's kibble or raw or whatever, so chicken, beef, those are the two
Yep.
foods that are probably fed to dogs more than anything else. And so
Mhm.
what we this is where we learn to go deeper because we
Mm.
hear, well, they're fed it all the time, and so they end up creating a sensitivity to it because they're fed it all the time. Well,
Mhm.
maybe that's part of it,
Yeah.
but um if they're if they're getting that all the time, what was that animal eating? Could it be the animal, or could it be that it was eating corn and it shouldn't eat corn, and the dog
Yeah.
that you're eating is allergic to corn or
Mhm.
wheat or any of those things? And
Yeah.
so I think that's absolutely a consideration. And so
Mhm.
maybe instead of changing the type of meat, which I will back up and say we should change the type of meat regularly. We don't want them eating the same thing all the time. Different
Yeah.
meat, different foods have different nutrients, and they need those different nutrients. We want to mix it up.
Right.
But instead of changing chicken to venison, which
Mhm.
is great anyway, but maybe consider changing your chicken from a conventional chicken, which is
Mhm.
sick and sad anyway,
Yeah.
to pasture raised chicken, and see if that makes a difference. You
Mm.
know, a chicken that was raised on bugs and grass and, you know, all of the things, and has exercise and all of the things that is natural to this animal,
Yep.
which really, if we respect our animals and our earth, that's what we do anyway. We give
Mhm.
them what they're supposed to have. We serve them, and I've said this a couple of times, but I think it's so important to just repeat. We serve them while they're here. We take care of them. We treat them well. We give them the things that they're supposed to eat, and not a bunch of junk that they're not supposed to eat,
Yeah.
because in the end, many of them serve us, and
Yep.
it serves us to to feed them well, because that's what's feeding us.
Yeah. Absolutely right. I mean, and you talk about a really, I think, important point that not only I think it's our responsibility as human beings on this planet to not only serve each other, but also serve the earth, which means the soil that we're growing our food out of.
Yeah.
The soil is got nutrients and bugs and minerals and everything within it. But if we're constantly spraying chemicals on top of it, we're essentially degrading the nutrient profiles of that actual vegetable itself, but we're also indirectly ingesting some of those chemicals.
Right.
When
Yeah.
it
And
grows,
there's,
it's pulling it up through the
mhm,
plant stalk and all of it. And especially when you, I'm going to touch back on CBD real quick. Hemp has this great thing of removing toxins out of soil. That's why if you don't know your source, you might be buying hemp or CBD, what it actually becomes, out of a soil out of China that is laced with so many heavy metals and chemicals that they actually planted it there to clean the soils up so they could actually grow something different.
and
But
that's
that
scary.
is scary because that's actually what is happening. And so, in with our agricultural system today, they are approaching it with volume, even though they throw away. I think the stat is like 60% of corn that's produced in the United States gets thrown away. It never makes it to our mouths. It doesn't make it to the fuel sources. It doesn't make it past that. So we are basically overly producing what we have, and we're not using what we have to the best of our ability. So I believe it is our responsibility to be a husbandry, to actually go after, to help our animals. And I love how you talked about chickens eating bugs and grass, because chickens are, they are just mean. They're carnivores. They will eat mice. They will eat anything. They will eat each other. They are just, they are a bird, almost a bird of prey, that they're going after all this. And don't drop bugs, or I mean, drop bugs in a chicken pen, because that's what they eat. But they
Yeah.
will attack them. It is like game on, like for all of that. And so, in really, this is what we're doing is and the way chickens are raised, and there's a great documentary made by the gentleman that started Hampton Creek. And Hampton Creek is a no egg utilization and making products. So he made a product called Just Mayo, and he ended up fighting big food companies because they said you can't put mayo on the container unless you use eggs. Because he made his mayonnaise with no eggs in it, because he started to actually study out of college. He started to look at how eggs are produced and how chickens are treated. Now, chickens are a social animal as well. That's
Right.
why you'll see a chicken on a farmer's shoulder as he's driving around his farm, is because they end up recognizing over 100 faces in their lifetime. But the way we raise chickens conventionally is that we put them into a shoebox, we cut their beak off, we put them in a shoebox, we feed them corn that comes down a line, and then that shoebox actually moves very slowly on a conveyor till as the chicken's growing to the end where it gets slaughtered. So you're taking a social animal, so now you're adding stress to it, putting it in a box and only just feeding it corn. And then we wonder why we have an allergic response to chicken.
Right.
Or that something else is not, and it's not giving us the nutrients that we want out of that chicken. So it is, I think, our responsibility as individuals to take care of the animals that we have. And ultimately, that's taking care of ourselves, because our human health will be on the rise. And that's the terrible statistics of increased autoimmune conditions. Hopefully we get on top of that and start lowering it, because autoimmune is not something that happens naturally. It's
No.
not like you are born with an autoimmune condition. Autoimmune condition is something that you do contract over time.
Yeah, yeah. Most autoimmune diseases are, it's an inflammatory condition and it's the body gone haywire.
Yeah.
And why? Well, because of our environment. And, so, genetics is going to play a part in it.
Yes.
But it's going to play a part in, what are you susceptible to? So you're susceptible to Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition.
Correct.
You're susceptible to it, but doesn't mean that you have to get it. Doesn't mean that it has to happen. So
Yeah.
you take care of, it's all lifestyle related.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so if you eat the right food, if you keep your stress levels down, if you move daily, all of these things, you do your best to detoxify, and, we can't control the air as much as maybe we want to, but so many of these things we have control over.
Mm-hmm.
And, these things, it doesn't have to happen.
Right. And you take a look at it on the side, that means that we have control, because I have these things. I have control over what I feed my dog, and I have control over what protocol I can give for him. So, really, on a side of if your dog is itching, definitely experiment with CBD, reduce the inflammation. What other things would you recommend for everybody watching to actually help a dog that's itching?
So yeah, I would do a leaky gut protocol. I would do fish oil.
Okay.
I would probably do digestive enzymes,
Mm-hmm.
probiotics, a lot of the same things that I would do for a human, because we need to nourish the body. So the turmeric or curcumin
Yep.
um, would do that as well. So any of these anti-inflammatories that are natural anti-inflammatories and not necessarily the drugs. Again, we might need the drugs early on, and that's totally understandable for the comfort of the dog.
Yep.
But doing high dose curcumin, a good quality. There's a lot of not good quality out there,
Yeah.
and then high dose fish oil for a period of time, and then we might bring both of those back a little bit. And then the fish oil, on top of being anti-inflammatory, is also going to be soothing. It's going to be soothing to the skin. It's going to be soothing, to the cells, and so that's sort of a couple of different layers there with fish oil. But then we've talked about this. Feel like we just talked about it last week. But the microbiome, if their microbiome is intact and good and healthy, well, they're probably not going to have these issues. But if their microbiome is, if there's dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of bacteria, if they, if it's just, if they don't have enough of the good bugs because of the drugs that were given them, because of the constant inundation of pesticides and herbicides, and because of the kibble, and because of the, heartworm, constant heartworm and vaccinations, and all of these things that we put on these animals out of care, because that's what we're told we're supposed to do. All of these things are going to disrupt the microbiome and reduce their immunity. And so then stuff's going to happen. Allergies are going to happen. Disease is going to happen. Cancer is going to happen. Weight gain is going to happen. So,
yeah.
And
that's it, and yeah, definitely by adding, what you just mentioned, turmeric, curcumin, CBD, these types of things, yeah, definitely can help reduce inflammation. Something I do with my nutritional consulting for pets is if a dog does come to me and they have, they're getting a lot of that type of stuff that comes in. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to turn this thing off. Okay, we had some music indirectly playing in the studio. Okay, I didn't need a soundtrack to what I was going to say. So what we'll do is an elimination based diet. And so what I want to know is, what is your dog eating now? But I want to know the habits too. So for example, when I had a conversation with one of my clients, she's like, no, he eats raw. And as the conversation unfolded, you find out her and her dog share cucumbers every night while they're watching TV. Now, vegetables are not bad for your dog, but some dogs like Leo cannot eat vegetables. See, it's almost an immediate itch that he starts to experience when he eats vegetables. And when I eliminated that vegetable piece out of his diet, the itching stopped. So what I'll do is, as I work with somebody, is I want to know all those little habits that spark up. Like, do you have a couple potato chips before you go to bed? Does your dog indirectly get a couple of potato chips before he goes to bed? Does he eat popcorn? Is he eating vegetables? And so all of this stuff. And so what we'll do is we'll eliminate everything except just a good raw meat product. Give it 2 weeks that your dog is now starting to very limited amount of diet. And I always look for better, worse, or same. Yeah. Because I eliminated for 2 weeks, is my dog better, worse, or same? Yeah. And if it's better, then we know, okay, there was something previously that he was eating that potentially he was reacting to. Then we slowly start introducing vegetables again, but do it very small. Like, for example, only carrots for a couple of days and see if the itching comes back. And if it doesn't, then we know, okay, carrots aren't an issue. Then we just keep going through and adding in until we find it. So really, it's playing the mystery game a little bit, but it's also uplifting, because then you have control now on, you're taking those steps to actually help your puppy out as best as you can.
Yeah. No, I think it's a smart thing to do. Kind of like, changing up the meat, change up the vegetables, get rid of the vegetables. Yeah, we have to, it's always a little bit of detective work when it comes to health, whether it's for us or for our dogs, or, it's part of it. But, these things aren't difficult. And, my hope is that, as we do these things, they're not as overwhelming as they are to some people too. And so people can kind of start to think through the process. Okay, this is what's going on with my dog. Okay, maybe this is my next step. And of course, anybody can always reach out to us too, for any questions about things. But, let's, some next steps is change the food. Let's, take them off kibble. Let's start to make some of these changes and see how the dog reacts. And I'm going to tell you, I've had 2 or 3 dogs now that had severe allergies, and just by changing their food to real food, it changed their world. No more skin issues, no more itching and scratching. It's a life changer. It really is.
Yeah, no,
And
we're huge advocates. So
yeah.
as we wrap up the show, you mentioned reach out to us. So how best can somebody get a hold of you, Nikki?
So, Taste Life Nutrition is the website. I work with humans and I work with dogs. It's mostly working with humans for their dogs, really, but to help to switch from kibble to feed real food.
Yeah.
And then I utilize the testing from Parsley Pet to help give guidance on that as well. So that's awesome stuff. But yeah, I'm always on, you know, Facebook doing the Facebook Lives. I've got my radio show, Taste
Mhm.
Life Radio, and then all of the social media. So I'm here. I want to answer questions. I want to be a resource for people for their human health and for their dog health as much as I can.
And it's Nikki Burnett with Taste Life Nutrition. And I will say that to have a practitioner or a nutritionist like Nikki and how she's a functional nutritionist, she's gonna take the time with you and she's gonna ask all of those questions and really get down to that root cause of what it might be causing it, and also offer some very safe alternative methods on actually helping you and actually helping your puppy not itch so much, you not have as many allergies. So that's why I love what Nikki does. So
Thanks.
you can always reach out to us and have your actual dog tested for its nutrients. So we test at Parsley Pet, we test over 48 different nutrients inside the body. And also we test 7 heavy metals because we want to know, is the dog receiving all of the proper nutrition that it needs and that it can. So thank you very much, Nikki, for being a part of the show. If you like the show today, reach over, click like Parsley, click like Taste Life Nutrition, follow us, and support everything that we're doing because we're out to just try to change the world one healthy person at a time and one healthy dog at a time. And so
Yeah.
I love everything that we're doing and everything we're doing. So definitely follow us. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch our show today.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week, 4 o'clock
Yes,
Mountain Time.
that's right. Mountain Time on Thursdays, 4 p.m. See you guys next Thursday.
Bye.